Hey, Katrina here from Scrappy Horses. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm so happy to have you here. Today I have a video that is in two parts. I begin in Cricut Design Space and then move on to the assembly at the craft table. This card was inspired by the challenge over at the Outlaws Twisted Thursday. The challenges there are always anything goes, but we add an optional twist, and the optional twist this time is recessed panel. I thought it would be fun if we did a recessed panel with a horseshoe, since my focal image is this sweet little horse from Wink Wink Ink. So let's move on to Design Space and see how I designed this card and then how we're going to put it all together. So here we are in Design Space. I have typed out the directions so we can refer to them as we move through this project. I know it looks a little bit intense with so many layers and so many pieces that are cut, but it's really not that hard because most of it is done with the offset feature. So let's get started. I think it's easiest to explain this project by first deconstructing the card. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make sure it is ungrouped so that we can do that and I can show you all the bits and pieces. First, we have this bow that I'm going to add to the top along with possibly some twine. I know I don't need to cut those pieces in Design Space. These are just place markers to add to the card so I can visually see what it's going to look like. So I'm going to move these aside. This piece in the back is my card base. I'm going to cut that with my paper slicer. I will actually cut my card base at 8.5 by 5.5. So after folding it, it will end up as an A2 size card, which is 4.25 inches by 5.5 inches. So I can move that aside. Everything else you see here, we have to construct and cut or cut and print in Design Space. Let's start by looking at the pieces that we will need to make this card. I needed a horseshoe, a square shape that we will turn into a rectangle, an oval shape, and my sentiment, which is from Hurley Miscellaneous Phrases. Now I also have my little image here from Wink Wink Ink, and he is called Free Spirit. So let me show you how I pull in these pieces so you know how to find them. If I go to Images, I can left click, type in horseshoe, and I have quite a few different shoes to choose from. This is the one I chose. I left click, add to canvas, and there it is. All right. So we don't need two of them, so I'll go ahead and just delete that one that we just brought in. I can do that by hitting the delete on my keyboard, or I can hit the little delete trash can symbol here. Then I also wanted some square and an oval here. I just picked those up from Shapes, and that's free. So here's a square that I can pull in to make my rectangle later on. And I go back to Shapes again, and here's the oval. I can pull those in. Okay, and again, I already have them here for us, so I can delete those. The sentiment from Hurley Miscellaneous Phrases, I went into Images actually and typed in best wishes and pulled that in the same way that I did the horseshoe. And later in the video, I'm going to show you how to find free images. So you'll want to see that if you don't know how to do that. So I'll set this aside because we don't need that in the way right now either. All right, I'm just going to set this whole thing, this whole card, right over here, sort of out of the way, but where we can still see it. I'm going to extend this over a little bit so we have lots of room here. Let's start with our front panel. And that's this piece. I know that my top layer is 3.81 by 5.008. I just eyeball dimensions when I make cards, and that just happened to be the size that I eyeballed. So you can play around and make these layers whatever size you like. But I'm going to go ahead and stick with what I have. And the way I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this is I'm going to unlock this square. And I know I'm going to need more squares. So you know what? Let's just go ahead and copy one right now. So I'm going to hit Command C, Command V, and just stick a little square down here. Okay. That way if I need another one later, I'll have it. I've unlocked this by pressing this little lock. I can also press the lock up here in this top layer panel right here. I'm going to type in the size that I want, 3.81. I'm doing this at my keyboard. I know that the height is going to be 5.008. And I just hit return on my keyboard, or I can tap this and it will give it to me. I'm going to go ahead and lock that back up. And just to keep this simple for us, I'm changing it to the color that this is, just so we don't get confused. Coming to my horseshoe now that I brought in, I don't need all these layers. So I can either close the eyeball and make them go away like this, or I can simply click that layer and hit delete on my keyboard. I'm just going to delete them since I know we don't need them. I'm going to go ahead and move it to the front by right-clicking, bring to front, and just putting this up on the card front. Now I'm going to go ahead, select them both by left-clicking and dragging over. And now I'm going to hit slice. Pulling out the horseshoe that we sliced with. And I'll pull this one out also. And now we have the front. Now I know I want to offset this piece right here. So I'm going to select offset, and I offset this layer at 0.111. So I'm going to touch my little dot here by left clicking on it, going to my keyboard, left arrow until I get to that dimension. There it is. I know I want a square corner on this, so I'm going to go to the square and not rounded and hit apply. Now I have this brown layer. And again, so it's not confusing, I'll go ahead and make that brown. And now you can see exactly what it looks like down here. Now while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and take this piece and I'm going to copy it by hitting my Command C, Command V. I'm going to put this back up here. I'm going to come over to the contour panel. Actually, it's the layers color sync panel. And I'm going to go to the contour. Left click, hide all contours, X, and now that's gone. And I have the cut and print rectangle ready to go now. All ready. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's move these aside for a moment. And I'm going to just go ahead and pick up something from Cricut Design Space. I'm not going to duplicate this pattern. This pattern that I had in before is from Victoria Designs, and it is a really beautiful piece of paper. And I will add that below in case you're interested in where to find that. But for now, I'm just going to pull one up from Cricut. So I have selected this brown rectangle. Print, then cut. Again, left click the brown square where it says color here. I click that. It gives me an option to choose pattern. I'm going to filter this, and I'd like something in the same sort of color scheme, so I'll click that cream. I want something with a bold, large pattern so I can show you how I actually moved this. So let's choose this. It's not ideal, but it will definitely give you a great example of what I'm talking about. So now I'm going to go ahead and move this brown piece. Whoops, I need to bring it to the front. So I will right click, bring to front. Let's try that again. Right click, bring to front. All right. I'm going to square that up by align, center, and I want some of these circles to fall exactly into this horseshoe. So I'm going to move this aside. I'm going to select by left clicking. I'm going to touch this little square, and I'm going to edit my pattern. I would like it larger because I want these larger to show through this hole. So I can just scale it up. And now this is what I'm going to have over here. I can move this up and down. I can move it left and right. Vertical, down arrow, up arrow. Horizontal, up moves it to the right, down moves it to the left. This is a little bit of trial and error to get it exactly where you want it. So let's try about right there. Let's just see where it is. So I'm done. I like it right there. I've scaled it up and I've moved it right and left. I've moved it up and down. And there it is. I can bring this back over. And let's say that I don't really like that. I'd like this a little bit smaller. All right. Move that away. I can just keep playing with this as long as I want. Edit pattern. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Let's move it slightly to the right, which is the up. Let's move it back in again. I think let's just call that good enough, all right? So that I don't waste your time. But you get the idea that you can play with this as much as you want and move this back and forth. Let's bring our top layer in, right click, bring to the front. And now we have all of this done. Here's the part of the video where I'm going to show you how to find a free sentiment. So let's go to images. I want best wishes. So I'm going to type in best wishes. If you look over here under filters, there is a free box. If you click that, you can come up with all the free best wishes images. So let's choose that one. Add to canvas. Size it down so it will fit. I can select both by left click and drag over. I can come up to a line and I can say center horizontally. That'll put it right in the middle of this card. Select them both, left click, come over to our layers color sync panel. Down at the bottom it says flatten. That will flatten it on and it will become a cut and print. If you look up here where it says basic cut, come back down here, I hit flatten. And now this is a print and cut. All right, and you can see that right over here. I have flattened and it says print then cut. All right, so we have the little horse here, and I wanted to bring in an oval behind him. So again, you saw earlier I got that from Shapes. I bring the oval in, send to the back. I can change the size a little bit so that it fits my little horse. You can play with that and get it just to the exact size that you like. I, again, used a pattern. Again, this is from Victoria Designs. I'll pull in one from Design Space one more time and show you how that's done. I have left clicked the oval, come up here to where it says Operation Basic Cut, hit Print Then Cut, click the little black square, click Color, choose Pattern. Let's filter and pick something blue this time. I go down to, I'm going to go down to some of the Cricut ones, and let's choose, I didn't look at this beforehand, so I'm sort of on the fly here. Let's just choose this one. And again, let's edit that pattern. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And let's do something different here. Let's rotate this. I'm going to my keyboard. I'm going to type in a 9, which makes it 90. So that's going to rotate it 90 degrees. Okay. And let's say that I wanted to flip this the other way. I could just do this and flip it going the other way. All right. Let's say that's good. And let's move my little horse on there. Oh, you know what? Before we do that, let's offset that. Go ahead and take care of that. You can just choose whatever size you want to offset that. I'm going to use my keyboard arrows. I just find it a little bit easier when I want a smaller offset. I want to apply that. I'm going to make that actually a basic cut, and I'm going to do it in a dark blue. Now I'm going to bring my horse back. I like him about right there. I'm going to come over to my Layers Color Sync panel. Down at the bottom, I'm going to flatten. And now that's all going to print and cut as one piece. I'm going to go ahead and lay this here. Actually, I'm going to bring my card back up into place. I'm going to move all of this to the front here. Let's just group it. We can move it all to the front at one time then. So I come over to the panel, hit group. It automatically comes to the front, and you can see that because it's at the very top of your layer panel. It's time now to hit that Make It button and color that little horse, and I'll meet you at the craft table. Now it's time to put all of our pieces together. I'm going to use some gold thread instead of twine and some juniper ink, again a retired color from close to my heart. Our little piece with the horse, and now our card front and our offset piece and that beautiful paper from Victoria Designs. There's our card base. I decided to go with a white card base and just put a piece of that juniper sort of color. It's really darker than juniper. It's probably more like a twilight green color, blue-green. And I'm just going to go ahead and adhere that front to the front of my card base. Again, my card base is measuring 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I have the juniper ink out, and I'm just going to ink around this little circle. Just makes it blend into the back piece a little more easily. Now it's time to put those layers together. I will use my ATG gun as well as fabric tack on all of these layered pieces. The reason I put fabric tack over the tape is because it gives me wiggle room. I have the opportunity then to line things up and make them as square as I can. If I just use tape, I would not have that capability. So here I am sticking it over the little printed paper, and now I'll do the same thing with the next layer. I'll go ahead and wrap this gold thread around my card front before I adhere it to the card base. You can wrap the thread as many times or as few times as you like. It really doesn't matter. Then I just go ahead and I tie it off. This next part, I'm making a multiple bow. And what I mean is it has a lot of loops. So I make my fingers into a 2. I go over, under, over, under. So over, then under, over, under, over, under, over, under. And I continue this pattern as many times as I would like to give myself as many loops as I want. Since this thread is really thin, I can put in as many loops as I like, and it's not going to add too much bulk. If you lose a loop, just put it back over your finger. Now, I didn't have enough room to put the whole spool in between my 2 fingers to tie this off. So I went ahead and I cut my thread, and then I went ahead and I put that thread down through there, just like you saw me trying to put the spool through. I'll bring that and wrap it around all those threads. And now I've got that bow and I can tie it off. It's not an easy task to tie that off, but it can be done. Once you get it secure, then you can tie it off several times. You can take it off your fingers and go ahead and tie it off several times. Now I can take the threads that were left over from when I tied them around the card front, and I can just tie this little bow into place. Once the bow is nice and secure, then I come in and I snip away those little threads. And now's the time to play with this and get it exactly where you want it, because once it's glued to your card front, there's no moving it. I decided it would be fun to add a little bit of this gold shimmer. This is from Close to My Heart. I'm not even sure if they still sell this. I will look into that and let you know. But you can sort of see when I rock the card back and forth, it kind of glitters a little bit, sparkles. So I'm going to use that on the horse's mane just to give it a little bit of sparkle. You'll also notice that I missed coloring the little butterfly. I picked that up, and the next time you see it, it'll be all finished. Now I'm just using my ATG gun to add tape around the edges and over the thread. I'm putting a little bit of fabric tack and adhering the card front to the front of the card. Gonna go ahead and add a little tape here to the oval and add my little colored horse with his little colored butterfly friend onto the top there. I'm going to use a little bit of the tape and glue. And you know what? This brings us to the end of this card. So even though all of these pieces may have looked a little complicated with all the slicing, it really wasn't too bad. If you have any comments or questions about this project, please leave them in the box below. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I thank you so much for joining me today. Hey, I also want to thank my new subscribers. I've had quite a few lately, and that's very exciting. So thank you so much for subscribing. And if you'd like to subscribe and haven't, all you need to do is hit that subscribe button. I'd also appreciate it if you'd hit the like button if you liked the video. If you have any thoughts, anything you'd like me to do on my channel, throw them in there. Throw them in that comment box, and I will take a look at it and see what I can do. Have a wonderful week, and I will catch up with you in the next video. Bye.